I've had directors be like, moan louder, moan louder. And I'm like, I don't want to moan louder. Like, I'm just moaning how I moan.
I'm wearing that badge of honor very proudly right now.
We just have so much fun, playing together.
So Eric was like, well, you could play the tambourine. And I said, I'm not playing the tambourine.
I love the love. I pay for the love.
I need to be outside. That's my office.
And really, your level of professionalism and streamlined is just it's really should be applauded. You've done a great thing. Like, this is really, I looked at some of your previous interviews, and really exceptional. I'm happy to be a part of the legacy you're building with Eclectic Arts.
Same.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts, based here in Seattle, Washington, in the United States of America. Thank you so much for joining me on this Saturday, the 2nd of April, 2022. And as always, I have a few housekeeping details to go through before we get to the live stream interview this afternoon, well, afternoon for me. Coming up tomorrow, on Sunday the 3rd at noon Pacific Daylight Time, I have Chains Over Razors joining me, which is a really hard rocking band out of Chicago. So I'm looking forward to talking to them. I'm not sure if it's going to be one, two, or all three members of the band, but in any event, I'm always, that's where my background is in music, and particularly rock, hard rock, and metal. So looking forward to talking to the guys tomorrow about the new album that just came out. I believe it was just last month. And then I have a couple other live streams that are pending right now, and I don't want to give out too many details. I kind of teased something on my social media about one that we have the day. We're trying to find the time on that day. So once I know, I will be posting that on my Instagram, which is where I post everything first. So if you'd like to follow me as Eclectic Arts Media, one word, on Instagram, that's where I post everything first. And then some of that information migrates over to other social media platforms. If this is your first time joining me on my YouTube channel, if you could do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to keep up on my live streams, my content as new things are coming out, in which I put things up pretty much weekly and sometimes almost daily. And if you're on the Twitch side of things, if you could follow me over there, I appreciate that. That's where I started all this live streaming work almost 2 years ago during the pandemic, was on Twitch. So I will always keep a presence over there. And if you really like what I'm doing, this platform costs me money every month to do my live stream. So if you'd like to help me out by supporting the channel and what I do, please hit the PayPal me link, which is in every video description I have on my YouTube channel. And if you want to throw a couple of dollars my way, I, again, greatly appreciate that, because it goes right back into keeping this thing alive and breathing and everything else. So my guest today is a new star in the world of adult entertainment. She has worked in both print and film. She has been nominated for an AVN Award and is a brand ambassador for Flourish. She is scheduled to appear in person at Chicago Exotica April 29th through May 1st. Please welcome to the Eclectic Arts Virtual Studio, Miss Hannah Grace.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Awesome. Thank you, Hannah, for joining me. I really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you here. I love getting a chance to talk to folks, and especially when it's someone like yourself that has a lot of things going on, and I want to hear about your background and how you got to be involved in the adult industry and everything else. But I think first and probably foremost, I should wish you a happy belated birthday.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So did you get a chance to do something fun for your birthday?
Yeah, I went out with some of my friends. We just went out to dinner, had some drinks. I rented a limo for all of us, so I picked them all up, and we had some drinks in the limo, and then we went back to my apartment and just played cards and watched movies all night. So it was really fun.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fun, and that's got to be nice to be able to celebrate it the way you want to celebrate it versus maybe 2 years ago or even maybe last year, depending on where things are at. So crazy to think about. Like, some people had 2 birthdays during the pandemic, so it's like,
I know, yeah, pretty wild.
Yeah, so like my birthday is in June, so I should be able to just kind of do whatever I want. which at my age isn't very much, but still, at least the option is there.
Yes.
Yeah, and so let's kind of talk about some things that are current, and then we'll kind of work our way back about your history in the industry and everything. So, as I mentioned in my intro, you're going to be appearing at Chicago Exotica, and you mentioned to me before we went live that you've been at one other Exotica in New Jersey last year.
Mhm.
So, what's this experience like, particularly like for a fan that's never been to one, and also what it was like for you as the star being there at your own booth?
As the fan, you just kind of like walk around. All the stars have a booth set up with their merchandise, and like you can buy prints or selfies or t-shirts if they're selling t-shirts. But yeah, you just kind of like take the opportunity to meet as many stars as you can. Some of the stars have really long lines if they're a little more popular, so sometimes you have to wait in line depending on who it is. But yeah, you just kind of like, I mean, if you're new to if you don't know a lot of porn stars, you might not recognize everybody. So you'll see a lot of faces that you don't know. But it's a really good way to just meet people and interact with some people that you've seen on your porn platform. You can see them in person. So, as someone who does their own booth, it's fun. I like meeting all the fans. People will come up and tell me that they've never seen me before, like that they don't recognize me. So it's a chance to get myself introduced to some new people and also just try to promote my name and my brand as much as I can.
Okay, and if there's ever like like a lull, like say at your booth, can a fan like actually have like a 5-minute conversation with you, or do they try to like keep things moving and not let someone loiter around your booth?
It depends on who it is. There's not like a rule or anything. Like if you have a really long line, the person might not take as much time to talk to you if there's other people waiting in their line. But someone like me, I don't really get long lines, so I might take more time to have a conversation with somebody.
Okay, cool. I've covered some of the like horror convention and pop culture conventions out here in Seattle. So it's exactly how you described that. When there's certain people, they might have a line that's going around the corner kind of a thing. So that's just like it's like a cattle call, like in and out. And then when there's somebody who maybe has a smaller line, you can actually take more time with them depending on that star's mood.
Yeah, yeah. It's very. I'm a little more introverted in my day-to-day life. So when I do the booths, I have to, not that I don't enjoy interacting with people, of course I do, but it takes a lot of energy. You're socializing a ton and you have to be like the bubbly, outgoing person that everyone thinks you are from your social media, and you just have to be very like have a lot of energy and be willing to be chatty and talk to people. I don't do that every day, so it can be a little draining, but it's fun. I have a really good time. Last year I had fun, so I'm hoping this year will be even better.
Okay, and yeah, and that makes sense too. I think it's something that fans, well, definitely if they're there at Chicago Exotica, they'll get to learn that just by seeing somebody. It's like, yeah, and I've talked with many guests about social media presence, that people put out there what they want to put out there, and so that's not the whole enchilada of it. Even if they're completely transparent about if they're having some problems they're going through or whatever, that's still not the entire person. You're not going to get to know them. So if you go there thinking, I know Hannah Grace and I've seen all her videos and I've seen all her spreads and magazines, like, well, that's one aspect.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, like you said, they don't really get that. Like they're in their head, they've kind of created this fantasy of like who they think this person really is, but actually meeting them and talking to them, you realize they're completely different.
Yeah, I know for myself, from the fan side of things, that when I've met somebody, it gets very real to you when they're talking to you and you hear their voice, and they may ask you a question about something, and you're kind of like, oh, so and so is asking me about, am I from Seattle or whatever it is, and it starts to fill in the gaps. Hopefully for most people. There's always gonna be a few people that there's no help for them, but well, that's awesome. And so, what kind of so are you gonna have like 8x10s there yourself, or some video slicks or things that you can sign off, or not video,
Yeah.
DVD?
Last year I had some 8x10 prints. I had some t-shirts. I have a friend who works in the industry too. He does graphic design, so I had him make me a logo, and then I got them printed on some shirts. So yeah, I had some shirts too. The shirts, the prints, and then I would charge like $10 for a selfie. But this year I've got some new merchandise I'm excited about. I made some coffee mugs. They're really cool actually. They're double-sided. So there's a different picture on each side. I've got some new shirts with the new logo. I've got a couple magazines and some new prints as well. So I'll have all kinds of stuff in my booth.
Okay, cool. Now, is for a fan that's watching this that isn't able to make Exotica, can they purchase this stuff somewhere else than some of the merchandise that you have available?
Yeah, I don't have a store or like a website right now. That's something I'm actually thinking about starting, so I can have a place to sell some merchandise. But if someone were to just send me an email or a DM and just said, "Hey, like I'm interested in some of your merch or like a Exotica shirt," like I would just probably ship it to them if they sent me a message that way. So, but yeah, I'm working on a store right now, so hopefully in the future that will be something new.
Okay. Yeah, no, I bet you there's some people that are either watching this now or watching this down the road. They're like, well, I can't make it to Chicago, but I want one of those mugs, or I want one of
Oh
those
yeah.
t-shirts. Yeah, or even for myself, if I get an 8x10, and I'll stick it up here on the wall behind
Oh
me.
yeah.
So, okay. Well, you might be getting a DM from me then. And for people that aren't familiar with any kind of convention, not just adult conventions, it is customary to have merchandise that the guests sell. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a comic book convention, a Star Trek convention. That's how these work. Because I've seen some people that kind of say, "Well, how come I got to pay $10 for a selfie?" It's like that's how the guests make money. That's why they're there.
Yeah.
They love.
Because a lot of the performers that are there, they're not in Chicago. They're flying in from different parts of the world. They're having to usually pay for their own airfare, of course, get a hotel, accommodate themselves while they're in Chicago. So yeah, like while everyone's there, the goal is to meet fans and have a good time, but also to make money as well. So that's a
Yeah.
big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just like you just described that. It's both sides of it. That the guests love meeting their fans. That's why they're there. But at the same time, they're not doing it for free. I mean, they can't incur that cost every time they go to a convention. It's like it just doesn't make any sense. So,
Right.
just kind of know that that's what's expected. Because again, when I've covered some conventions here locally, I'll always hear some griping from somebody, out of earshot that I don't know, some stranger that got dragged there by their friend. It's like, how come I got to pay for this 8x10, or how come I just want to get a selfie with them? It's like $5 or whatever, and it's kind of like, well, you're not forced to do it. You don't have to pay the money. Then you just move on and see them from afar, go to a panel or whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and you don't have to buy things like you said if you don't want to. There's other things going on. They have a big, usually they have a big stage. Well, they'll have all kinds of acts like dancers or like different types of comedy. I don't know, just like all types of entertainment. So and there's booths for like some small podcasts will go to the convention, they'll set up a booth and they'll be doing talks or shows with some of the stars. So as a fan, you can walk by their booth and like see someone being interviewed or hear them being interviewed. There's vendors for like from sex toy companies that will have booths there, so you can see what kind of stuff they have. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on. It's not just porn stars, it's like the whole sex industry. So that's what I loved about it.
Yeah, and that's very well put. That there's lots of other things to do at the convention. It's not just one note. It's many notes. And when I just had this memory when you were talking about seeing like a podcast going on or seeing a guest being interviewed, that I was doing an interview with a guest, and she wanted me to do it on Sunday morning, like before they officially opened, because that was going to be the easiest time to do it. And Sunday traditionally over here is the slowest day for conventions. And the doors already open, and so people are kind of milling around. There wasn't a lot of people, but this one gal, I don't know if she was just having some sort of some sort of issue, but she wanted me, because we had just finished the interview and I had a microphone in my hand. She said, "Oh, can you put the microphone back in front of Dee's face so that I can take a picture of you interviewing her?" And I'm kind of like, "What?" And Dee was so gracious, like, "Mark, just go ahead and do it." So we did that, and then as that person left, she's like, "Welcome to my life, Mark."
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And she had done a number of conventions, and I remember she told me the first time she did one, other guests said, only bring like 2 pictures and try not to like engage with the fans too much. And she's like a hugger and she loves her fans and that kind of thing. She said, "Mark, that lasted like 5 minutes." And said, I went right out of there, and I was just myself. I did it the way I wanted to do it, and she loved it. And that's why she's still been doing them all these years later. So I've gotten to see the other side, a little bit of what guests go through just from being back on their side of their booth or their table, and thinking, yeah, because there's another time when there's a guest that I was interviewing, doing an audio interview, and I'm always mindful that, someone comes there and they want to buy something, they'll pay for an autograph or whatever. I need to stop and let them do that. And just hearing the stuff out of that fan's mouth was like, "You're kind of creeping me out."
Oh wow,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm not even the guest, so I'm just like, if you're creeping me out, I don't know what you're doing to her. But luckily, he kind of moved along and creeped the next person out, I guess. Too. But that's from my point of view, that's been very, very minor from what I've seen. I think that's the majority of it's been positive interactions with fans and guests, and that's why people keep doing them.
Yeah. When I went last year, everyone was very respectful. I mean, I didn't really have any issues personally. You'll have guys who come up to you and they'll just try to take your picture, like without asking for a selfie or trying to pay for it. That's kind of annoying because they'll just walk like right by you and like take out their camera and start like snapping photos, and you don't know what they're taking pictures for or like who they are, so you kind of have to get in their face a little bit and be like, "Hey, like if you want a picture, you've got to pay for it. Like you can't just walk up here and start snapping pics." Like but everyone's pretty nice and respectful. I think I've heard some girls, talk about people who get too handsy, or they get a little too excited and they cross some boundaries, but for the most part it is a very positive space. So
Okay, yeah, no, and that for the most part is what I've heard. I haven't had a chance to actually be at an adult convention yet. That's quite something.
oh really, oh you should
Yeah,
go.
yeah, I think it's something, especially if I keep doing these interviews, it's something I need to check off my list.
Yeah, you could get a booth set up. You could have your own little like station and like interview different porn stars and have them like come to your booth and
Yeah, it sounds like a ton of fun. I mean, I started off doing interviews first and foremost way back when, so that's what I love doing first, and then reviews are second, and then photography is a distant third for me. So no, I will have to keep this in mind.
Yes, you should.
Yeah, and so the reason you would be at a adult convention is obviously because of your adult work and your career that you've done. What are some of the most recent scenes that you either have coming out or that you've been working on that aren't seeing the light of day yet? They're still, post process and all that kind of thing. What do we have to look forward to?
So I think it was like January. Yeah, January I debuted on bang.com, which is a site that I had been wanting to shoot for a long time. The scene has not been released yet. I don't think so anyway. Sometimes with the bigger companies, once you shoot a scene, it can take some time for it to come out because they have like a queue of like dozens or hundreds of scenes already that they still need to release. So but when that comes out, that'll be pretty exciting, and I'm excited to share that with everyone. So I've got that coming out hopefully soon. And then there's some new scenes that will be coming out with the Flourish, which is another up and coming website that I'm a brand ambassador for. So I'm continuing to work with them a bunch, shooting lots of new scenes with them. But other than that, I think those are kind of the two big things I have coming out right now. I've been taking a little bit of a break, like the last month and a half or so, just spending a little more time at home with my family. My dad had some like health issues recently, so I wanted to make sure I was around to see him and catch up on school as well. I had midterms exams a couple weeks ago, so but I'm hoping like the end of this month, like after Exotica, I'll get back on my groove and start shooting and traveling a little more often. So
Okay, well, I hope your dad's doing better first.
oh, he's doing better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. And we're going to talk about your schooling and stuff a little bit later down the road. But with Bang's obviously a huge company, so that's awesome that you shot a scene for them, and that you're a brand ambassador for the Flourish. And I'm curious about like with your OnlyFans and your mini vids. Are you shooting your own content for those sites? Or are you working with somebody that's helping you do your content?
I haven't been shooting a lot of my own content lately. Again, just kind of been taking a little bit of a break. I still have both my OnlyFans and my mini vids. And I'm still active on there. I just haven't been making anything new lately. I kind of go through phases where I'll shoot a bunch and I'll be working so much for a couple months and then I get a little burnt out and I need to take like some time off because I need to get inspired again, come up with some new ideas. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But no, I shoot all my own stuff. I'm not great at editing, so I try my best. Sometimes I will hire someone to edit the content for me if I feel like it's not great enough to release. But other than that, no, I try to do everything myself. So I like to have control over all my platforms and everything that I'm doing.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's one of the the best aspects of those platforms is that you can control what you put out there when you put it out there. You might be able to like stockpile 10 scenes or 10 different things, and then put them out and sprinkle them out over the next 3-4 months even sometimes, just so that you can take those breaks, but it still seem like you're putting things out there. And I know, like you just mentioned, a lot of the companies do the exact same thing. They're going to sit there and keep shooting stuff and then put it out there when it's coming through the queue. And I'm kind of, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you start doing your OnlyFans during the pandemic time? Is that when that started?
Yes. Like right after the shutdown, like beginning of May is when I started doing OnlyFans. Yes.
Okay, and maybe I'm doing this out of sequence, but that's okay. So when you started OnlyFans in May of 2020, and is that when people started reaching out to you about possibly doing adult work?
Yeah. So prior to OnlyFans, before COVID and everything, I was dancing. So I worked in a couple clubs around my hometown. But of course, a lot of those closed. So I was kind of like trying to figure out what I was going to do next. Um, I hadn't even heard of OnlyFans at that time. I didn't know anything about what it was, but I had done a little bit of modeling while I was dancing. So I had all these photos, like lingerie, bikini, boudoir photos that I knew I could try and sell or post on somewhere if I wanted to. So everyone started doing OnlyFans and telling me about it. And it was easy at first because I had a stack of pictures that I could just start like posting on there. I didn't really have to make anything new right away. But then that's when I also joined Twitter because I hadn't ever been on Twitter yet, but I was using Twitter to advertise my OnlyFans. And I don't remember what all happened. I think I just started following girls in the industry because I wanted to see what they were doing, like try to kind of not copy, but just get some ideas on how I could decorate my page. So I think I just started following some people in the industry, and then there was an agency that found me, and they were the first agency that I worked with for a while, and they told me about doing film and how it all works and getting to travel, which I thought sounded really enticing since I hadn't done much traveling yet. And they set me up my first scenes with Team Skeet. That was the first big company I shot for. So yeah, it was all just kind of a series of events that happened in like a 2-month time span. First I was dancing, then the shutdown, then the OnlyFans, and then Twitter, and then getting into film. So it's all like a domino effect in a way.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I'm one of these people that I kind of think about, well, if this didn't happen, then like a lot of these other things don't happen. So like in your case, if the pandemic maybe had not shut down everything, you might still be dancing now.
I know. I always think about that. Like if COVID hadn't happened, would I still be doing what I'm doing now? And I really don't know the answer to that. It wasn't something I'd ever thought about before COVID. I was kind of just trying to figure out how I was going to survive, like what my next step was, like what I was going to do with all the free time I had. So I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. I feel like I may have gotten into it. It might have not happened as soon as it did with COVID happening, but yeah, it's interesting. I think about it sometimes.
Yeah, I think you can't help but think about it. It's like look at
Yeah.
these unexpected turns that happened in your life that brought you to where you are now, where you're going to be meeting fans at Chicago Exotica in a few weeks. So it's like, okay, how did this happen from 2 years ago?
Crazy.
That's awesome though. Like when life can be random like that, and some pretty cool things happen. And it seems like you're doing well, and you're studying and shooting scenes when you can, and you've got a fan base that's growing, and you're working for bigger companies, and just that ball's rolling wherever you want it to roll, and you're basically in control of it. So if you say I don't want to do this anymore, then you just don't do it anymore, and then you move on to all these other chapters in your life. So yeah, that's really, and I think everyone can it probably has some kind of story similar to that happened during the pandemic. I mean, I've mentioned this before, like with these live streams, I wasn't doing anything like this prior to the pandemic. It was the furthest thing from my mind. It was like, and I can only think, where are they? I can thank the band Alice here, because they're the ones that reached out to me about their virtual tour and said, Mark, how do you feel about coming on and opening up our shows? And I didn't understand what they were talking about. What am I going to do? And they're like, no, we know, lots of artistic people. We thought you could do like half-hour interviews to do all of our tour dates on our virtual tour. And I'm like, I was going to say no. I'll be honest. I was going to say no. And then after asking them a ton of questions, then I decided, we should just kind of give this a shot and see how it works. And I'm not tech oriented at all. So I'm like, I only have a phone. I don't even have, my laptop was ancient and all this kind of stuff. And they said, oh no, Mark, we can work with your phone. What kind of phone do you have? And, they just kind of walked me through, and we ended up doing 59 shows on that tour. So that's where all this came from. And so had they not reached out to me, you and I probably wouldn't be talking right now virtually.
Yeah, I think, as horrible and scary as COVID is, it did create some new experiences for people. Like, I think some people were able to focus on hobbies and interests that they maybe didn't have before COVID, or they have the time now to actually do things that they weren't or may not have had the time to do before, if that makes sense. So even though it really sucks, I think in a way it's helped to bring out potential in a lot of us. So when it comes to exploring our hobbies and interests.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a bit of a silver lining for some people. I think there's some tremendous cooks now, tremendous bakers. I know a lot of people, that's what they're doing during the pandemic. It's like, I'm stuck at home and I've got time that I normally wouldn't have. So let me start figuring some of this stuff out. And yeah, and that's awesome. And in your case, you started on a career path. In my case, this has been a wonderful medium for me to have. So even with in-person concerts and events back, I still obviously do these because I want to have both worlds. So if a band or someone's got something coming up like yourself, I can come promote it. And They don't have to come to Seattle. They could be anywhere in the world, and we can make this happen.
That's
Well,
awesome.
so, yeah. So, what was life like for you, like growing up and in high school and that kind of thing? Was it like a normal type of childhood? Did you have siblings? What kind of things? What was life like in the Midwest?
I mean, yeah, I had a pretty normal upbringing. I've got two siblings. I'm the oldest. I have a brother and a sister. High school was okay. I mean, I honestly was like a pretty normal kid. Like I did sports, I did music, I was involved in different clubs. I had my circle of friends. I lived in a safe neighborhood. I mean, I don't really remember having that many bad experiences as a kid. My parents are still together. They've been married for 35 years now. I have childhood friends that I'm still friends with today. Uh, yeah, honestly, it was pretty normal growing up. I mean, I had, there were ups and downs, like everybody has. Things weren't always great, but overall, I'm pretty grateful for the childhood that I had. So
Yeah, and I love hearing that because I think that's one of the biggest myths about people in the adult entertainment industry is that they came from this stereotype of broken home, sexual, physical, emotional abuse, like all these kind of things. It's like a lot of them had none of that. They were just like your neighbor, growing up with you through school and doing what they wanted to do, and ended up being part of sports and music and just living their life like anybody else. And it's things that they either wanted to do, chose to do, things of that nature. And I think some people are like surprised by that because when I've done a couple of these other live streams, I had some people message me later, said, Mark, how come you didn't ask about, why they got into that awful industry? It's the wording from a couple people. I'm like, one, who the hell are you? And two, I'm not even going to dignify that with a response because it has nothing to do with what that person is doing. And in one person's particular case, she had a wonderful childhood, teenage years, everything. She's just a very sexual person.
yeah, that's exactly kind of how I feel too. I was a late bloomer when it comes to sex in general. Like I didn't have my first real boyfriend until after I graduated high school. So I didn't have sex in high school at all. I was kind of sheltered as a kid. Like my parents were a little more strict with what they let me watch, like what kind of music I could listen to, like that sort of thing. So I didn't really have those experiences until I was much older. And then at that point, when I was like as an adult, I kind of felt like, oh, like I am my own person now. Like if I want to explore with sex and my sexuality, like I have the ability now to do so. And having not felt like I had that freedom throughout my teenage years, like it was very empowering for me to like get into an industry where I felt like I had that sexual freedom. And that's where I discovered like I am a sexual person. Like I just didn't know it until I actually started working in the industry. So
Yeah, no, and that's really awesome that that you basically got to a point where you're an adult, you're maturing, and you're kind of like, I want to explore some of these things. And once you got into the industry, you're kind of like, well, I have this to try and this to try and this, and I can kind of figure out what feels great to me, and maybe it all feels great, or maybe only certain things do.
yeah, I mean, everyone likes sex. I don't know why people talk down on the industry so much. Everyone likes it. We all do it. I mean, most of us do, right? I mean, not everyone's comfortable on camera, but just because you're comfortable being filmed doesn't make you a bad person, or doesn't mean like you don't have any self-respect. You just might be a little more brave than someone else. So
Yeah, no, very, very true. A real short aside story that I had, and I'll try to make sure I say this without like incriminating myself, because I mentioned to you before that I used to work as a teacher. But there was a student who had special needs, and he was pleasuring himself sometimes underneath his desk in a classroom. And so they wanted me to kind of try to talk to him about why he shouldn't do that. And when you think about it, it's like, how do you tell somebody to not do something that feels so good every single time it happens? And I mean, an orgasm never disappoints, I don't think. So it's kind of like, yeah, I know it feels good, because that was his response to me when I talked to him, because he was high functioning. It was kind of like, but Mr. S, it feels good when I do it. It's like, I couldn't say, well, no, it doesn't. It's like, yes, but there's a time.
I mean, I still think there's a time and a place for
Yeah.
sure. You don't want to make anyone else uncomfortable, but I totally agree with that. I could understand his point of view for sure.
Yeah. And what you just said is exactly the angle that I took. I talked about time and place. Do you see other students doing this right now? It's like, no, you don't. Do you see me doing it right now? No, you don't. So it's like, yeah, we don't do this here. We're on, school property or whatever. And he stopped. But
Oh, that's good.
He
That's
did.
good. I'm glad it ended well, at least.
Yeah, because I guess I don't know what the next step would have been. And he was a super nice kid too. But I was like, I remember when the case manager came and talked to me, like, Mark, can you go have a discussion with so and so? And I'm like, about what? And when they told me, like, oh gosh, how am I going to approach this? But yeah, it all worked out well in the end. So, but yeah, you're right. I think everyone at some point, it doesn't matter how conservative you are, if you're waiting till you're married or if you have kids, like, well, you had sex somehow to produce those kids.
Right, exactly.
They didn't, there wasn't, well, as far as I'm concerned, there wasn't miraculous conception, and they just didn't show up out of nowhere. So yeah, that's one of the best things I've had about talking with some of the guests in the adult industry doing these live streams, has been really kind of demystifying, pieces of it. And because some people are just naturally curious about it, and some people already have made up their minds about like how awful it is and you're going to hell if you do that kind of thing. It's like, well, you're probably going to hell too, because if we're talking about the nature of sex, I know you've done something.
Right.
So,
and I think people are still getting comfortable with the idea that not everyone views sex as a private thing. I think that's where some of the people who don't understand or don't like the industry, I think in their minds they view sex as something private, something more intimate that's like only between two people that not everyone is seeing and hearing. So when they see someone on the internet like freely having sex for everyone to see and hear, I think that's where some of the confusion and misunderstanding lies, is in that.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the private versus non-private, and when we can talk hours about whether or not someone should be commenting on what someone else chooses to do, and especially with social media out there, it's given everyone a platform, including toward me, about what they think, what they like, don't like, all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, the old adage, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. I think we really need to kind of go back to that.
Yes. It's the golden rule right there.
It is. And you mentioned earlier about that, like you had midterms and that you're in college. So if you don't mind, what area are you studying?
So I'm in social work right now. I am very passionate about people, like helping people mentally, emotionally. I want people to feel like the best versions of themselves, I guess. So if someone's struggling with anxiety or depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, like I want to be maybe like a counselor or like some kind of therapist where I can like help people who are struggling with some of those mental disorders. I've always been interested in human behavior, human psychology, things like that. I've never wanted to work somewhere where I'm just sitting at a computer all day or talking on the phone. I want to work with people directly. I want to help people. So I thought about nursing for a while. In the end, it ended up not being the field for me. So that's why I started thinking more about social work and psychology. And I feel pretty confident about it right now. There are days where I have some doubt, just thinking about the future, like how long I'm going to be in the industry for, if there's other fields as far as a career goes that I might want to explore. I'm kind of interested in business and finance. So that was one area that I thought maybe I would explore instead. But after taking these classes in social work, I'm starting to feel more good about it. I've never been someone that's really enjoyed school. I went to college for 1 year after I finished high school just to kind of please my parents because they, of course, were expecting me to go, but I didn't know what I wanted to do and I didn't know why I was there. So I went the first year and then I stopped going for 2, 3 years after that. Just sort of trying to figure out what my passions were and what I wanted to do. Um, and then I got back into school last year and I just started taking some classes in mental health and psychology. I learned a little bit about some mental disorders and I found that stuff really interesting. And for the first time, I feel like I'm actually enjoying my classes and what I'm learning. So I think that's a good sign that I'm doing something right. So
Yeah, no, that's a great sign, and I kind of relate to what you're talking about because as soon as I was done with high school, I went to a community college, and it was kind of just to kind of keep that ball rolling, parental pressure about what are you going to do with your life, and that kind of thing, and that's a hard space to be in when you don't want to be somewhere and you're trying to being forced to basically study. And so when you find that class or that subject area, it's like, wow, this is kind of interesting to me. Then it becomes so much easier to want to study, do the tests, do the assignments, all that kind of thing, because you're actually seeing that this is something that you're interested in instead of being told, well, you need to do this, and you
right.
have no interest in it. So
Yeah, my plan, I think, like when I tell someone I'm going to social work, they usually the response I get is like, "Oh wow, like you must be really passionate about it because there's not a lot of money in that field." I get that a lot. And kind of what I'm thinking is, well, first of all, I'd like to get a master's degree. That's something I've always like been striving for since I got back into school. I told myself one day I'm going to get a master's degree. Um, and then I've also had this like entrepreneurial mindset. So I think what I'd like to do is like have different streams of income, whether it's my OnlyFans or my mini vids, or like right now I'm taking some classes in e-commerce, trying to learn how to open a store on Amazon. So I want to have my regular day job, but have it not be my only job. So I can do something that I love, but not be stressed out about finances, if that makes sense.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's very smart. They talk about that all the time about having multiple revenue income streams for anyone, whatever you're doing in your life. And if you just rely on one, that's pretty risky.
Yeah.
And as we know, and I'm no different, that I've changed jobs I don't know how many times. It's like, so it's kind of like, well, this one isn't working out for a variety of reasons. Then you move on to the next one. But then in between, what are you doing? Well,
Especially with how, I mean, everything just keeps getting more and more expensive. Um, it's ridiculous. Housing, food, gas, everything. So yeah, I think it's very important to have more than one stream for sure. At least three, I think, is ideal.
yeah, and it's good that you're and smart that you're already thinking that way. That you're trying to educate yourself about e-commerce, about some other kind of ways to, down the road. I want to be able to not be stressed out about finances, so that I can do things that I'm passionate about, and not just put all my eggs into that one basket. It's like, well, no, I like this, but I also like this, this, and this, and they're all bringing me in some sort of revenue on some level, and that way I can be comfortable. Because yeah, I mean, it's freaking ridiculous out there right now what it costs for anything.
Yeah, everything is expensive. It's wild.
Yeah, I just the fact that I have to kind of think twice about, do I really want to drive there based on how much gas I'm going to use? Is like, well, maybe I'll go with my friend, or I'll just wait till next week to do that. It's like
Hmm.
didn't have to think about that, but here I am having to think about it now.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. And one other area that's when we're talking about like OnlyFans and mini vids
Mhm.
and content and streaming and all that kind of thing. How did you decide what type of scenes you're going to shoot for those platforms, not the ones you're doing for like studios and that kind of thing? So did you just kind of take whatever came your way, or did you did you methodically go, oh, I'm going to do like, boy, girl, boy, boy, girl, girl, girl? What kind of things did you kind of figure out? Did you have no game plan too, and just, I'm just going to take it?
Yeah, I didn't really have a plan. Now that I think about it, I feel like I should have been more organized and thoughtful with my content, but I kind of just like, I don't know. I would just shoot things that I thought were interesting, that I thought were fun. I focused on my outfits, so I would try to change up my outfit, kind of have a different theme. Like I know that like the schoolgirl theme is really popular, and I have like the bangs and the glasses, so I would like throw on the schoolgirl outfit for a lot of my scenes. Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of like if I needed someone to shoot with, like I would just go through my phone and try to find someone locally who could come do a scene with me. It's kind of hard to plan as much as you want when you don't live in a big hub. You're more limited to who you can work with as far as like talent goes, and also just like the setting, like in the winter being at home, it was kind of hard to shoot because I can't really go outside, it's too cold. I mean, I could, but I hate the cold, so so not being able to shoot outside, you know, that cuts into some of my ideas. So there's some planning involved, but I didn't sit down and take a bunch of notes and decide, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Usually it was just kind of spontaneous, or just ideas that would just pop into my head.
Okay, and knowing that you had you had some some structure to it, but a lot of it's kind of like whatever's kind of coming your way. What was your experience like when you did your first gangbang?
Yeah, that was I'm trying to like think back to that moment, because now it feels like that was forever ago. It was only like a year and a half ago. No, it was fun. It was for Tadpole Studios. They're also in Chicago. They're a growing website. They're not the biggest company ever, but they're growing. They've got a lot of videos they've shot with a bunch of girls. But yeah, it was I think there was 5 or 6 guys in that gangbang. Everyone was very nice, and I had a great time. I kind of liked having all the attention. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, it was fun, and I kept doing more after. I think I've shot at least 3 or 4 scenes with them now, so they're a great group.
Okay, cool. And it seems like most of the stars have like a do and a don't list. Is there anything on your don't list? Like, yeah, I'm not shooting that kind of thing.
I don't shoot anal. There is one anal video of me on Pornhub from like a while ago that I did, just kind of like because I wanted to try it, and it was like with this guy who was paying me a bunch of money, whatever. So I was like, okay, like I'll try it, see how it goes. I did not like it. I did not have fun. But the video still came out, but I look really bad in it. You can tell I'm not enjoying myself. So I don't advertise that video. I mean, I just did just now, but but so like a lot of people, I say I don't shoot anal, but then I get these messages like, oh well, I saw this one anal video of you like on Pornhub, and then I kind of have to explain, well yeah, it's there, it's me, but I mean it's not a good scene. So yeah, that's on my no list. It's just something like it's not for me, I don't really enjoy it that much, so I don't shoot it. I want to look my best in my videos, so I don't want to shoot something where I'm not having a good time or not comfortable, because that can really show on your face. So and then just like there's so many crazy fetishes now, I feel like I kind of have to filter through some of them, because people will ask me like, oh well, like do you do water sports, like do you like to get peed on, well do you like to do hardcore like blowjobs and puke and gag and all this stuff, and like the hardcore fetishes I usually don't shoot. For me, I'm pretty basic, just typical boy, girl, 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 group stuff. I do like gangbangs. I like orgies. I like group scenes. But nothing too crazy. Nothing with pain or lots of bodily fluids. I usually stay away from those, but
Okay.
just my own personal preference. There's so much out there people are doing now, like so many types of new porn and fetishes. And I mean, there's a fetish for everything now. There's a fetish for armpits and biceps. Like, it's just, it's crazy.
No, you're right, and you're very, very smart too. If you've done something that you didn't like, and it absolutely shows. And you know this from having done modeling shoots too. You know, prior that, and I used to work for a good 10 years doing model shoots, so I kind of know, like, if the model's not comfortable, it comes through in every image you take. And same thing with video and anything else. So it's like, if you don't feel comfortable doing anything, so, you know, I tried it once, and it's like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. And people need to respect that, and that's kind of why. And like you said, there's fetishes that I didn't even know that existed, and especially with, you know, the internet and tube sites and everything else. I mean, like, I had no idea that people were into some of these things. You know, some of it I knew about, but the other things, like when you're talking like, you know, armpits and stuff. Yeah, I saw them, like, oh my gosh.
I know. It's bizarre. It's really bizarre.
Yeah. I know one of the gals that mentions that on her no list, she won't do anything related to electricity. And I'm like, what is that? And then she had to kind of explain, you know, some of the stuff they can do, and like with your nipples and other places on your body. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, like electric play. Yeah, I did try that too. Not in a scene, but just like for my own personal curiosity. And I didn't really care for that one either. But that one's a little much, but to each their own.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you find what you're comfortable with and how you want to present yourself, and that's what you go with. And that's different for every performer, for sure. And I know one of the other performers was talking about, she wished she had like kind of methodically did more in her career. So like, she started off kind of just going gangbusters with whatever came her way, and she wished she had maybe done something that was like more conservative, I guess you could say, in porn, and then kind of went and like this to kind of build up to like the big, you know, anal scene or the big gangbang or the big whatever. And she was like, well, it's too late now.
Yeah.
But then, having said that, she is more conservative about like which one she does, so that there is still kind of a build up to it. Maybe it's been 6 months since she's done one, so now she's going to do one again, and all that kind of thing. It's like, well, I never really kind of thought about that kind of thing. So brings up the point of doing what you're comfortable with and what you want to do, and the fans either are going to be like totally accepting of that, or like, well, okay, well, maybe I have to, you know, like you. And
yeah, always stay within your limits. You know, don't let fans or people tell you like, hey, you should do this or you should do that. Like, do what you are comfortable doing, and don't let people try to pressure you into doing something else, because in the end you're just gonna regret it anyway, and it's not gonna look good on camera. So
yep, and it's all about your brand, about how you look. So that's really good advice. And as we get closer, kind of wrapping this up, I realize we've gone way over 30 minutes.
That's okay. This has been fun.
Okay, cool. I'm curious, did your stage name of Hannah Grace, did that come from the movie? Are you familiar with the movie at all?
I mean, I am familiar with it now, but before the fact, no, I did not know that was a movie. No, someone actually told me like a few months after I started doing this, they're like, hey, did you know that's a movie? And I kind of had to Google it. I didn't watch it, but it looked really kind of creepy. I don't know. Like the cover. I think the movie is actually called The Possession of Hannah Grace, but I have not watched it. I've heard it's a horrible movie. But I don't know. Maybe one of these days I'll give it a try, just to say I watched a movie that had my name in it. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I haven't seen it either, but I was like, when I saw your name, I think the first time, you know, many months ago, I'm like, I wonder if that came from that horror movie, that Possession movie, and that kind of thing.
Oh, no. I probably will give it a try, actually, just to say I tried the Hannah Grace movie. But no, I've heard it's a horrible movie. I've heard it's really bad, so I don't know what to expect.
Okay, so did you just kind of like just throw some different names down or write some stuff down or put it on your phone to kind of eventually come up with a combo of Hannah and Grace?
Yeah, it was I thought about some of my childhood nicknames, just some things that I would go by. I don't want to give out too much information, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time on the name. It was easy. It was easy to get it. So
Okay, well, and I think it's a nice name because I actually had to, again, when I saw the name, I was like, well, did that come from that movie? And to find out that it didn't, that's really interesting to me that you just kind of came up with it, and then turns out that you used it in some, possession horror movie thing.
I did want to go for like a girl next door name, so something kind of sweet, innocent sounding. So I thought Hannah was perfect, and I asked some of my friends. They said, "Oh, like you look like a Hannah," so it just kind of worked out.
Okay, and
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious, did you happen to have like a runner-up name that you were going to use if you didn't go with Hannah Grace?
No, I haven't really thought about that actually. No, names are very hard in the industry because you have a lot of very like the same repetitive names over and over again. Like Star or Scarlet or like um Fox like is a very popular last name. So I just wanted something that didn't sound like everyone else's, that wasn't super repetitive. But no, I've actually not thought about what my alternate name would be. It's actually interesting. I'll have to think about that one.
Okay, and you're right. I mean, I think for the industry, there's so many certain names, words are used a lot for different stars. It's the same thing like trying to come up with like a band name.
Oh,
That
yeah. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, you want it to sound good and flow well, but you don't want it to be like everyone else's. So it can be hard, yeah, to pick the name. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah, I had a musician that did a live stream, and she was trying to do a solo project. So she's like, "Mark, I know you're creative. Can you help me come up with a name?" And I'm like, "You don't want to use your actual name?" She's like, "No, I want some other kind of stage name." So I was amazed when I was coming up with things that I thought I was making up in my head. I'd Google it, and it's like, "There's already like 5 things named that or whatever." I'm like, "Dang!" So I was racking my brain. We must have spent 2 weeks trying to come up with stuff. And then she eventually didn't use any of the things I came up with, and she
Oh,
went with something else
wow.
she made. But I'm like, that was kind of the lesson for me recently of like, wow, it's really hard to come up with something original for any industry when it comes
Yeah.
to a stage name. Goodness. And hey, Carmichael, good to see you. He's saying bad horror movies are the best horror movies. Well, yeah, in some cases you're right.
That is true, actually. I have seen some pretty badly rated horror movies that I thought actually were pretty good. So yeah, sometimes that can be true.
Yeah, that's true, and I review a lot of them. So it's like, is this going to be so bad it's good, or is this just going to be like just bad, bad?
Mhm.
But I know one other thing that I want to kind of touch on that you like to do outside of everything that you do in life is that you seem to be really involved with fitness, gym, outdoors, and you kind of.
Yeah.
So what's that play in your life like? I think weren't you at the gym this morning or something, or earlier today you posted?
Yeah, I did post a little thing on my Instagram. Yeah, I go to the gym, and this is all just something I started doing within the last few months. I was a little athletic in high school, but I never used to really enjoy going to the gym or working out until just recently. I live right next to a gym. I think that was how I started getting motivated, is because I didn't have to get in my car. I could just walk over there. I hate driving. So the fact that I didn't have to drive to a gym, I could just walk over there, was the first step into my motivation. And then I got with a trainer that I really, really liked. She's amazing, and she helped me explore some routines that were good for my shape and my body, and we came up with a good fitness routine. And then I've been taking classes too. So right now I go to the gym. I'll do my workout 3 to 4 days a week, usually first thing in the morning before I get my day started. But I also like to do cycling. I'll do a cycling class on the weekends. I like to do yoga. I just started doing these lifting classes. So it's like a group of people and there's an instructor and they like a bunch of stations and everyone's lifting weights the whole time. So I like the group classes a lot. But I also enjoy hiking. I like backpacking. I like to do things on the water, canoe, kayak. Um, but on the flip side of that, I also am a homebody and I love being at home and doing nothing all day sometimes and just being on the couch. So that's also great. I like both sides of the coin.
Okay, no, and that's cool that you recognize that about yourself, that you like being outdoors at times, and other times you want to be a vegetable and just kind of, be in the comfort of your home. And
Yes.
it wouldn't, for some reason, it wouldn't surprise me that maybe that might become another revenue stream for you down the road. Or maybe you're doing like, being a yoga instructor or doing something, an outdoor guide or something like that. It just kind of, because that could be done on the weekends. So like, let's say if you're doing social work in some capacity, like Monday through Friday or whatever, and then you want to do something on the weekends or in the evenings to help supplement. So I could see that, since you already have it seems like you have a real genuine interest in it. So it wouldn't be something that's forced. It'd be very natural.
Yeah, I think so too. So yeah, I at this point in my life, I'm just focusing on my work, but also other interests, other things that I enjoy doing, because I think that's important to take that time for yourself and to figure out what your passions are and what makes you happy. Because you can't just work all the time. I mean, you can, but it's not healthy. You have to do other things too that you enjoy that are good for you. So, and if you can make money off those things, then that's even better.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more about having balance in your life, and that the adage is that it's work hard, play hard, not work hard, work hard.
Yes, I agree.
So, well, Hannah, thank you so much for taking an hour today to
No,
talk
this
with
has
me.
been awesome. I've enjoyed the conversation and it's been nice being on your show. I hope you'll have me back one day.
Oh, I would love to have you back. I truly mean that, because I love having guests come back where we can update things, or if they have something new to promote, and we can kind of see where they're at in that particular date of life, and kind of go from there. But yeah, I truly enjoy talking with you, and I hope that we get a chance to talk again. And check your DMs, because I'll probably send you something.
I'll definitely be on the lookout.
Awesome. Well, have a great Saturday night over there and a great weekend. And I hope to talk to you. Awesome. Thank you. And we'll talk to you hopefully sometime down the road.
All right. Sounds good. Take care.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.